This is the setup I've made for my trailer to carry the track barrow. Drop the legs down. I had to screw blocks of wood onto the ends of the legs because they're actually too short. They drop out, the ones that came with the trailer. Couple of old planks, my handy dandy retaining pins. They're just cuphead bolts with the threads cut off. And I find this thing very easy to load onto the trailer and unload. I've got it down to about a minute now. It only weighs 200 kg, and I can legally carry, I think, 280 or 70 in my trailer, so it's ideal. Now the only one problem is, as it comes at an angle like that down, the gearbox can bottom out, and here it was just touching the gravel. It's protected by a plate, so I'm not worried about it, but that's they're all like that, by the way. And actually I got this one because from the photos and images I saw online, it looked that there was some better ground clearance compared to the generic Chinese ones in terms of the gearbox, which is the lowest point of the thing. I haven't actually measured this one, but I'd say it's about 3.5 inches of ground clearance at the gearbox, and the planks that I'd found happened to be just barely long enough to get the right angle. If you're going over bumps and roots and things like that, it can be a little bit jumpy. No suspension in it, as you see there, going over the galvanized pipes, so you have to mind that. To measure the thickness of the steel here, this is the chassis frame. Let's say 4.2 millimeter. It's 4.2 millimeter here. These guys here are 6.27, so 630 probably. These struts here say 10.16. This is where the hydraulic goes on the hydraulic version. I just put a pin in there to strap a chain onto at a later stage for pulling stuff out of ditches. This crossbar here is what's that? 30 thick and about 50 tall millimeters. I presume it's the same thickness, probably the same 4 point whatever as that. Now, going in for a closer inspection, that's the tightening bolt there for the tracks. That compresses a spring there. You can see it's a fairly heavy duty spring by the look of it, which compresses the you can actually see in there, not really, it tightens this sprocket way down in there to tighten the track. Tracks are running on a kind of a section of a channel, box channel, coming down here. You see the tracks. Now I'm fairly sure they're metal lugs. I'll test that with a magnet. They're bound to be metal lugs in there. Decent, I presume solid idler. Sealed bearings. These guys are the bogies. There's 3 of them. They also have bearings. That's the drive sprocket there. And the tracks are they look pretty good. They look fairly thick. They're about 3/8 of an inch thick. They're what does that say? Let's say something tracks. ITR rubber tracks. ITR rubber tracks, American company. And this back in here is that's the clutch, the braking mechanism for the gearbox. There's the gearbox in there, sitting in its protective pan. And you can see in there the drive belt. That's the axle there. I'll move the brake, and you can see it moving. That's the brake there. That's the left-hand brake. The other one is similar. Motor, Honda GX200. The standard motor. There we go. There's the gearbox. Now the gears are a bit sticky. You have to kind of give it a bit of clutch, or they don't actually engage sometimes. Just the tiniest bit of clutch. This particular Honda is made in Thailand. The handlebars are slightly bent at an angle from the vertical. Very nice ergonomic shape. No straining the wrist. The bucket tips down pretty close to vertical. There's very little information online about the details of these machines. Plenty of videos of guys driving up hills with piles of logs, all that kind of stuff. But so if anyone has any questions, leave a comment and I'll go and check the machine, and I'll try and answer them in as much detail as I can. And I hope to do another video later on to do with the different speeds and gears and how the braking, in terms of how fine you can tune the braking and all that kind of stuff. So I've got a pile of logs here, or sticks really. That's them stacked up, ready to go. That's them cut. And a friend of mine very kindly gave me this fiberglass tub from an old farm barrow, and it's the perfect size for the track barrow. You see the sides come out, it just sits in beautifully, and that gives me a skip, so I can load lightweight, high volume material. And that's all the logs sawn up into bits. And I mean, it's probably maybe 100 kilo of logs in there, maybe less even. So the machine is not nowhere close to its capacity weight wise, with that amount of timber. But you know, for convenience sake, that's about as much as I'd want to carry in one go. but it handles it no problem. I haven't been running this thing at full throttle, by the way.